Section 6. In the government and the public sector use cases. After completing introduction, now in lecture 18, we will focus on the first government and the public sector use case, that is identity management. As you are aware, ID management or identity management is basically an organizational process which is used for identifying, authenticating, and authorizing an individual or even maybe a group of people to carry out a particular activity and providing them with user rights. Identity management plays an important role in various activities across the government, and with the digitization increasing and cyber security breaches happening, it is important that there is a strong focus on identity management. And blockchain technology has the potential to manage and confirm the user identity and the related credentials in a safe way. Because in blockchain, we can, once the data is put into the blockchain, it is controlled and it can be accessed only based on the access level, and additionally, it cannot be changed later. So the best way to store the data is using blockchain, and it is not a centralized platform as I have already told earlier, but we have the same copy available on multiple places. So attacks like the honeypot attack and other attacks can be avoided. So let's first look at the various aspects of identity management. What is the need for identity management? So the requirements for identity management include confidentiality of data, but performance should be there. It should not happen that we take a long time to actually get the data. Then we should also have performance of data. Then the tasks will be segregated. So with the help of identity management, independent tasks can be carried out and the resources can be allocated accordingly, and the confidentiality also can be maintained. Also, with the identity management, the topmost important thing is providing a security measure against data breach or maybe even replacement of data. So it's important that we need to understand the requirements of identity management and how blockchain can fulfill those requirements in terms of confidentiality, performance, segregation of tasks, and security. Then, what are the existing concerns in identity management? Typically speaking, today, there is a lack of standards for establishing digital identity. Every department of the government can store the identity in a different manner. So, it is not possible to track a person with its identity from one department to the other department of the government. So, if there are standards put in place, then it will help in the government operations. Also, there are differing attestation processes for identity, like entry points, which prevent economic engagement and can hinder public sector service provision. So whenever different subsidies or different welfare activities have to be carried out, it's not because the entry points are different for attestation, then economic engagements can slow down and the information is not available at the point of a at the click of a button. So lack of standards and the way the data is managed and the way the data can be attested, it is differing as of now. Now, what does the blockchain give you? So, the blockchain value proposition for identity management is secure, self-sovereign identity, which enables efficient transactions across any asset class. The individual and the explicit control over what is shared among the identity elements can be controlled, and based on that, individually the governments can decide what part of the data should be shared with the other departments, while what should be kept private. So, as you can see here, we have explained the requirements for identity management, then the existing concerns and how identity is managed, and the blockchain value proposition. After understanding these concepts, in the next slide, now we will look at identity use cases. So the first one we look at is identity verification. So typically earlier, like how do we, like I want to log into a machine, my username and password combination is the one which is normally used in every system to verify the identity. But it's a flawed system, because in identity verification it is possible that it can be impersonated, or the credential can be compromised, and the data can be lost, because very often people may put in simple passwords so that it's very easy to crack them. So if the identity verification can be done on the blockchain, the login data can be the data can be stored in terms of multi-step authorization, multi-factor identity verification, and in an immutable manner. So authentication can be streamlined, and stolen identity and credentials can be reduced to zero. Civic and Edge Identity Solutions, New Banking Identity, are basically working on identity verification service. It's also possible next to have the use case as secure identities for the decentralized web. Now, secure identity means that if the identity is available permanently stored on the blockchain, you can't have two people with the same identity, because the data can be, duplication can be easily caught on the blockchain. And so on the internet, right now we don't know whom I'm talking to or who is there. So if the identity is authorized and put on the blockchain once and for all in an immutable manner, then authenticity can be maintained and the user's identity will always be known if required. So the peer-to-peer interactions can become more transparent in nature. MetaDiem is an identity protocol, while Madana is a personal data sharing platform. They are working on blockchain. Even Humanity.co is working on personal data rights on the blockchain. Then, after looking at the identity verification as a use case and secure identities for the decentralized web, we have another use case which talks about decentralizing the user data storage. Now, typically speaking, right now, with the internet available and our devices are connected, we may have our data on central servers, on locations even which we don't know and which can be breached at any time. So, with the property of decentralization of blockchain, the data can be collected and put in a decentralized manner wherever required on the blockchain on several nodes, and then it is available to everybody, so the identity can be preserved, and the digital customer base is decentralized. Trustee is a personal data storage with a secure wallet, and Peer Mountain is working on cross-chain data storage. It's also possible that instead of having different identities and then using each department uses a different way of storing the data, it is possible that we can have a self-sovereign identity which is maintained by all departments of the government. In this case, what would happen is that for every operation, only the same identity will be used, and that will smoothen and make all the operations transparent and very quick. So, self-sovereign identity. Civic is working on self-sovereign identity. Validated ID is working on a biometric-based identification on blockchain, while the key, it's a government initiative for identity management. So, with the self-sovereign identity, it is possible that there is only one single identity by which we can identify the person, or an individual. And then we look at another one in terms of secure IoT. So basically, you are aware that you have security IoT devices which have been on the rise everywhere, and people are immediately migrating and getting into using IoT based devices. It could be RFID sensors and even handheld devices and even tracking devices which people wear, like pulse tracker and pace tracker and whatnot. Now these devices are all over the internet. Once you connect it, the data is over the internet, and it is possible for unauthorized activities to happen or data manipulation to take place. So these devices, since they immediately log into the internet as and when you connect it, it's possible they're very vulnerable to hacking. And to avoid this, if the information from the IoT devices is available on the blockchain, then it can be made more secure. So what WOTT is a smart device identity platform on blockchain. Unique ID is an IoT connected device identity protocol, and Object Tech is a global identity ecosystem. Now, these different, so as technology is moving forward, it's not only the information on the government which is stored on the blockchain, but it's also the devices which we are using. So, while we are talking about IoT based devices, the information from the IoT based devices is on the blockchain. So, like this, we can have another application that is, non custodial login solution on the blockchain. So if we know whenever we log into an online database, it could be it's a company server, or it's an online account, or it is another company where you log in. You have a custodian who is going to ensure that your information is not compromised. Even in fact, when we use a payment gateway, we assume that it is going to make our data transfer secure. So with the logins available on the blockchain, you don't need a third party to become a custodian to manage your data, and the credentials can be only put on the blockchain. So private key and public keys combinations can be used for logging in. Edge is working on a non-custodial login solution, while Reme is working on a login identity verification solution. Then you have another important aspect of identity management use cases: stronger protections for critical infrastructure. Now, this is very important. Whenever we talk about critical infrastructure, it could be like a power plant or a grid, or the government based electricity generation plants, or maybe the dams or the water supply, and so on. Whatever government infrastructure is available, the data for those infrastructure should not be hacked, and they need to be extremely secure. Otherwise, they could create havoc in how systems are going to work in the long run. To provide extreme level security and protect them from terrorist attacks, it's possible to ensure that electric grids or the panels or the dashboards, or maybe even an automated pilot system, which is actually the plane is working, even that can be hacked. So there's an extreme protection required for the critical infrastructure, and this can be maintained on the blockchain. So UPort is an open identity based system, while KIP is enterprise scale identity system. AG5 is working on verification of adult content. So such different platforms are available which are working on different aspects of the blockchain. Then I would like to present to you a very small example, which is just a proof of concept, but it's not yet implemented, which basically was is proposed by a blockchain researcher called named Chris Ellis. He actually built up an blockchain based passports digital passport system using a Bitcoin blockchain and carrying out some encryption. As you can see, the source is given over here. This will allow you to identify yourself online and also offline. It's called the World Citizenship Project, and it's a beautiful initiative which is launched on the GitHub. And the basic idea was to put up a simple process for anyone in the world to create their own private passport service, validate it, and prove that it is the existing existence of only him and not another person. So it has used the Merkle root of the latest block, and based on the blockchain concepts, it has put in cryptographic signatures in place so that the contents of the card cannot be changed, and you can sign the passport with the PGP key. So the information available on the passport, it would look something like this. While it would contain the creation date, the name, the key ID, the online avatar, the subkey information, the signature box, also the contact information, the passport style photo, the transaction link, and the keybase.io link, and the transaction ID with a proof hash. With all this digitized information put onto the blockchain, you can identify the single person. And it was using actually Bitcoin nodes to collect the data. And this particular document can be authenticated and confirmed. So if this is taken up further, and the strength of this initiative is actually identified and validated, it is possible to have a very different way of having an online digital passport which is standard across the world instead of what we have right now. This will also bring in trust, and it will be a new way of looking at how things are happening in the future. After this, we look at a brief set of identity projects across the world. So there are many identity based projects across the world where basically the focus is on looking at how to reduce duplicacy, redundant compliance steps can be reduced, better security can be provided to all the stakeholders and even end users. It's also a better enriching experience for the user, and it's also meeting the global identity and privacy requirements of the different countries of the world. I mentioned a few of these earlier, like Civic basically is working on a digital identity platform in a decentralized manner. It is using tokens to fuel the whole process, while Uport is working on identity management solution with Consensus C, and it's basically working on a self-sovereign identity for individuals and even businesses, but it is using ethereum blockchain for this. And it's also implemented a smart contract in to see how the identity transactions can take place. Then you have self key, which is another blockchain based identity management system for owning, controlling and managing their own identity on the blockchain. It is similar to civic, but it is based on ERC tokens. So another similar initiative is secure key, which is basically like civic, but working on hyperledger, and it is used in Canada. So the initiative operations are in Canada. Then there are other countries across the other organizations across the world like Tyrion, UID, Corda, MetaX, etc. So this is a brief idea about the various blockchain identity management projects across the world. I don't want to give you all the details of each one, but you can always surf on the net and get them. They're based on various platforms like with Hyperledger, IOTA, and even R3 Corda. So various initiatives like this are going to help blockchain being introduced into the identity management sector. Now, to conclude over here, in the identity management section, we initially explained the existing problems in the identity management and how blockchain provides a solution. We looked at a few blockchain use cases with the initiatives in that sector. We also saw the project by Chris Ellis, which talks about a self-sovereign passport, which can be released and can be created by the person and maintained and authenticated on blockchain. And then we looked at a few blockchain-based startups. After completing the use case on identity management, in lecture 19, I will focus on law enforcement.